Hey guys, hope all's well. We're going to look at a character contrast between the character of Haman and of Mordecai in the book of Esther. So we pick up in the first interaction with these two. Haman's the second in command of the king. Mordecai is the cousin of the queen. No one knows this relationship. He's actually kind of raised her as his own child, but he is not in a position of authority. So Haman kind of comes into the king's palace and all his arrogance, just real cocky, pompous guy. And the king's decree was that everyone had to bow down to Haman. Mordecai, as a self-respecting Jew, will not bow down to him. And so Haman has so much hate in his heart towards the guy not bowing down, says, not only do I want to kill him, but I want to wipe out his entire people. So he goes to the king, says there's these troublemaking people called the Jews within the kingdom. They don't obey your laws or your commands. We need to get rid of them. So they make a decree that on this certain day, there's going to be a legalized genocide against the Jewish people. You'll get paid from the king's treasury, and you'll be able to take possession of any Jews that you kill. So obviously there's distress throughout the kingdom, throughout all the provinces, and Mordecai goes into mourning. In that, he sends a message to Esther and says, you got to go before the king. You got to stand up for us. She's hesitant because at that time you don't just go to the king and talk. You have to have an appointment. So we'll pick up here in Esther chapter 4, verse 14. This is Mordecai speaking to Esther. He says, for if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? And guys, I like that for 2 points. First, Mordecai had complete confidence and trust in the Lord. Even in this time it looks like utter despair, he knew that the Lord's in control. The Lord will deliver his people. He challenges Esther, do you want to be a part of that deliverance? And 2, the question is, why do you think you're in the position you're in? Did God not give you that position? If he did, is this not the time? Is this not the reason that he put you in the place that he did? And that's just a good evaluation for me and for you. Why did God give us what he's given? Why did he put us in the positions that we're in? Fast forward a little bit. Esther goes to the king and invites Haman and the king to a banquet. So they come to the banquet that night. Everything goes great. Esther says, I want to come to another banquet the next night. Then I'll give you my petition, king. So Haman leaves feeling great about himself. He's all hyped up, leaving the kingdom. And then he sees Mordecai again. Won't bow down. He goes home and he starts whining to his wife, saying, I felt great. I'm this, I'm that. I'm second in command. It's only me and the king going to Esther's banquet. But all that I've done, everything that I've accomplished is nothing when I see Mordecai at the gate not bowing down to me. And it's just like, this dude is pathetic. Like when you read about him, it really is comical. If you go back and read Esther, read the stuff that he says, he's literally one of the most arrogant people I've ever read about. So his responses were pretty comical. At his wife's suggestion, she says, build a gallows 50 cubits high, and we'll have that whenever the time comes, we'll hang Mordecai on the gallows that you'll build, and you'll feel better about yourself. Fast forward once again. The king can't sleep that night. So the king is also kind of an arrogant tool, and when he can't sleep, he wants a scribe to be brought in and to read from the history books about his own life, about his own rule. So that night, the story that they're reading is there was a plot to kill the king years previous to this, and Mordecai was actually the guy that uncovered it, told the king, and the king's like, well, what did we do for him? Turns out nothing was done, and the king doesn't feel good about this. So the next morning, Haman's coming into the court, and the king says, hey, Haman, what should be done for a guy that the king wants to honor? Haman starts thinking, okay, who else would the king want to honor but me? Aren't I something special, Okay. And so he lists this whole litany of things that should be done. Bring out the king's finest robe, the finest horse, put him on, actually stuff that the king's worn. Have one of the nobles from the kingdom parade this guy around the kingdom and say, this is what's done for the guy that the king wishes to honor. So the king says, okay, Haman, you're my noble. Go do everything that you've said and do it to Mordecai the Jew. So it's just kind of a nice little biblical slap in the face to Haman and his pride. Doesn't really pertain to the story that much. I just really enjoyed that piece of the story. And so he's kind of recovering from the humility, goes to that second banquet. This is the second banquet that Esther wanted to have King and Haman to. So he's kind of recovering. Okay, well, that stinks having to do that, but now I'm going to the banquet with the king and Esther. The king says, what's your petition? She unveils, no one knew that she was a Jew. She says, I'm a Jew, and this wicked man Haman came up with the plot to kill me and my people. And the king is just besides himself. So he walks out into the garden, comes back in. Haman says jumped on Esther and is like pleading for his life. The king interprets that as he's like, wow, now you're going to assault my wife in my very palace? At the same time, one of the servants says to the king, look at these gallows that were built over at Haman's house. They're 50 cubits high, and they were designed to hang Mordecai, the guy that you just rewarded. And it was just the last straw. The king is upset, so I wanted to pick up here in the last chapter. That's verse chapter 7, verse 9. Now Harbro, one of the king's eunuchs, said, look, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him on it. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. And on that day, King Ahasuerus, if that's how you pronounce it, gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off the signet ring which he had taken from Haman and gave it to Mordecai. Guys, it's just crazy to see the guy that was in ultimate power was so arrogant, such a tool. Kind of is the negative example of all the proverbs. You know, pride comes before the fall. He who rolls a stone will have it rolled back on him. There's so many, like Haman exemplifies the bad proverbs. And then Mordecai was a guy of lowly position, honoring the Lord, and it's crazy to see how even in the moment of just trial of, it's crazy hectic. His people are about to get wiped out. He's not going crazy. He's trusting that the Lord will deliver, and it's awesome to see how the Lord blessed him. And not only did he restore him, protect his life, but promoted him to second in command, gives him this guy's house. Just incredible blessing. And maybe that's not true all the time. There's plenty of other stories in Scripture where the Lord doesn't bless with prosperous or financial blessings. But it's cool to see the difference in the two men, and then kind of the story at the end, how one was so high and he ended up hanging on the gallows he made, and how Mordecai was blessed. Guys, get in the Word. I was really challenged with the book of Esther, a book that I haven't read much. I've always associated that as kind of a woman's book, story about about the character of Esther. But the Lord really worked with me on it this week. And if you're interested in wanting a good read, I challenge you to go back and read that. Hope you have a good one.